Yeah, I think we're shocked. I mean, sometimes, you get rumours in the press that the manager's on his way out. This came completely out of nowhere. I mean, timing was a little bit surprising because I thought, well, given that we had the sanctions in January, we couldn't really get building for the transfer window. We invested £250 million. We gave Aubameyang at the back end of the transfer window. You would have thought, well, actually, you know what? He's going to give it time. I thought maybe the international break in September, things weren't improving. He would have given the boot then. But clearly, it's new ownership, new board. Tuchel doesn't fit with their plans, possibly, and they've decided to make a decision now and move. So just to move on with a new manager that fits their vision, that's going to, do all what they want and how they foresee Chelsea moving forward. So that's probably the main reason. Shocked, yes, but it's Chelsea. We do it. We got form. We win a trophy, we sack a manager. We hire a new manager, we win a trophy, we sack him. So it's how we've worked for years. I mean, the average span of a Chelsea manager's life, going back to when we were formed, is 2.6 years. So it's definitely not a job for life being a Chelsea manager.
So you actually said this right now, like the Abramovich move from the goalie.
It's ruthless, like Abramovich. It's very much the sort of thing he would have done. I think, Di Matteo, after winning Champions League, was sacked very early in the season after losing to Juventus. So this is a ruthless Abramovich situation. It shows the new owners are not scared to make big decisions. They want to do what's right for the club. They've invested a lot of money. I don't think that we'll have the same hire and fire under this regime. I think they're going to get a manager in place. And it looks like it might be Graham Potter because they've just given Chelsea permission to speak to Graham Potter, a new up-and-coming progressive manager who will be able to build a team, build a style, make us competitive. Because, you look at Liverpool, for example, they gave Klopp the job, a couple of years of, inconsistencies. Now look at them now, 7 years on, they're playing brilliant football. They're always challenging. So that's what I believe Chelsea will want to do. They want to have somebody in place who gets the process, will build a really good football team. And it'll get to time to do it because you can't keep, hiring and firing managers. Chelsea tend to go for, the top managers. You've gone from Mourinho to Conte, Ancelotti, players like that. Lampard was the exception. That's probably more because of circumstances, because of transfer ban. Given another elite manager a job, and he delivered a Champions League, European Super Cup, Club World Cup. He delivered two finals, but the football was really poor. Yesterday's performance was one of the worst I've seen Chelsea put in for a very long time. And we don't have a divine right to win every football match. And Zagreb totally deserved their victory. Set up brilliantly, made it very difficult for us to play. We had no idea. We had no fight. We had no desire. It was hugely disappointing. And that was the issue. But I think the decision probably when he, was in process. I don't think last night was the nail in the coffin. I think it was just symptomatic of what's been going on. Behind the scenes, we don't know what's been going on. He's upset a lot of players. His comments after the match didn't endear him to anybody. So I think they thought we've been here 100 days, transfer window's done. Now it's time to change the manager, bring in somebody who shares our vision, and we'll drive Chelsea forward and hopefully to win more trophies.
Do you think Tuchel, the new team?
No, in fact, he hasn't. He's only had, Fofana came in very late as well. He hasn't had time, but then you don't get time in football. That's the issue now. This is such a competitive, cutthroat industry. You won't get the time. I think they probably already made a decision on Tuchel prior to some of these players coming in. Now, you always this kind of football have these players being brought in for another manager. It's very Cucurella from Brighton, Graham Potter comes over from Brighton. All these kind of conspiracy theories you might want to promote, but. No, I mean he hasn't had time. But then the football's been bad for a very long time. You go back to last season, apart from one or two games, we were poor. We weren't winning games, weren't putting games to bed. We scraped over to get a fourth spot, did enough. They backed him to point because Lukaku was taken out of the club and he was £100 million signing. He went on loan. Werner's out of the club, so to a point, the new owners have backed him. But we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Clearly, there's been some arguments about the direction the club was going, the football, the pitch. And we've invested, the billions they've invested. They want to make sure they make the right decision. So, they got rid of Bruce Butt, Marino Granovskaya, Peter Cech left. So they completely, made the club their own. I think the next step was the manager. He wasn't their choice. And clearly, he didn't share the vision by the sounds of it. And they made a decision to get rid of him. And football's cutthroat. It happens.
No worries. an example. It sets like a precedent. For example, this is how I'm gonna run this club.
I think it's because he's not afraid of making big decisions, and he's had to, he brought in Raheem Sterling, which is a great signing. Very well, really good player. They're not afraid to make big decisions. They haven't knee-jerk reaction from taking over and got rid of the manager straight away. They've been there 100 days. They've obviously had conversations with Tuchel and his team that don't share the same vision. Maybe what the new ownership expect from a manager. Tuchel doesn't want to deliver or can't deliver, and then they made a brave decision. Look, as long as we don't get sort of 6 months down the line and we're struggling a bit and Potter's taking a while to implement his style, then we sack him again, and it's like, well, what are you doing? But LA Dodgers, who Todd Bowley owns in America, they've had the same manager, I think, now for 8 years. So they've got a consistency, and the Dodgers are in American sport are almost always up at the top, getting close to winning the World Series. So if he follows a similar model, gives Potter time and understands the fact that to build a team in a style is going to take time, then I think it'll be fine. Potter has built Brighton, as he's proven season after seasons. Some of the football he plays really good. He's a great coach, and now we'll see. It's a Chelsea thing. If it doesn't work out, then we'll be having another conversation 18 months' time when Potter's gone and we're looking at somebody else to bring in. But I think this will be different. I don't think it'll be Romanesque, where we'll sack a manager in 12 months. I think this guy will get time. If it means not getting Champions League football, maybe they're going to budget for that. And that, if it takes a year, 18 months to get the team the right way, we'll have to deal with that. Liverpool under Klopp took a while to get into Champions League and so on. So, it comes a point where you can hire and fire as many managers as you want. If you want to have progress, you want to see development, you want to see all these players integrated, all the kids. That, interesting, a lot of the players on loan haven't been sold, like Ampadu. They've only learned him, they want to keep him. They bought a lot of good young players as well, which owes to a progressive coach who wants to work with youth players. So it's a patience game. We hope, we don't know, there will be a degree of patience from the new owners, and they'll give Potter or whoever does come in the chance to to build a team in their identity.
So as fans, are you willing to do you think is the right man after seeing what he's done?
I think, yeah. I mean, Chelsea have normally gone a step before for superstar managers, and they've gone for a manager who's got a good kind of understanding of how the game plays, how he wants the game to be played, and he's progressed year in, year out. It's going down a very different route to what Chelsea have been used to. He's got the track record. Now he's in the big boys clubs. All disrespect to Brighton, he's now in the top end of football. I don't think he's afraid to make decisions. He'll come in. He's a footballing man. He's a good coach. He knows how to get players playing well. So we'll see. Listen, it's always a risk when you appoint a manager who hasn't necessarily got a prestigious track record like a Mourinho had or like a Conte had. But then we've been down that route with Chelsea so many times. It only got a very short shelf life. Mourinho's only got so much time. Conte, Ancelotti, who was sacked unfairly, in my opinion. So it's time. It's a different regime. It's a different outlook, and they've obviously seen Potter showing the vision that they do. So to move Chelsea forward, playing really good, open, progressive football.